Hello friends, today is 11 January 2017 and we are going to discuss the articles of The Hindu. Before starting the discussion, first let's have a look the article which we are going to discuss in this video. Here it is a small article regarding the quashing of appointment. Supreme Court recently stamped on the verdict of the Madras High Court. What actually Madras High Court did? They quashed the appointment of 11 members of the Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission. We would discuss this article. Next article is regarding the cyber hacking into the US elections. So this article little bit we will discuss. The main article is regarding the cold start. What actually the cold start is and should India adopt the policy of cold start or not? This article is related to Bangalore molestation case. We have already discussed that, but still we would extract some important points and move forward. This article is regarding India and the Kenya's relation. This article, gender budgeting. So we are going to discuss all the article. Let's start. What is the utility of first article? The question may come like that. The recent quashing of the appointments in the Tamil Nadu Public Service Commissions highlights the serious issues from which the almost all public service commissions are suffering from. Is it right time to go for the spoil system? What is spoil system? We would also discuss spoil system in this article. So what is the timeline? Actually, before the assembly elections of Tamil Nadu, the appointment of the 11 members in the public service commissions of the Tamil Nadu was pending for last 3 years. But Tamil Nadu government was doing nothing on this. And when the assembly elections came, they appointed the 11 members in a single day. They didn't follow any process. So acting on this, Madras High Court quashed the appointment of 11 members. So Tamil Nadu government was not satisfied with this and they filed the appeal in the Supreme Court. Now Supreme Court has given the assent to the Madras High Court decision. Supreme Court has said that again restart the process of appointment because you didn't follow the proper procedure. Context we have discussed. So Supreme Court has said that actually it was you were using this appointment as the political tool, so you wanted to use the members for your own benefits. So this means the article is saying actually the Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission and Tamil Nadu government, they were actually disrespecting the constitution because Public Service Commission is a constitutional authority and they didn't follow any process. This was also you can say that comment given by the Madras High Court. They say that what we evaluate the process because there is no process itself. And there was also a point of retired judge. Supreme Court said that how can you appoint the retired judge of district court and which was given the retirement at the age of 58 years. Supreme Court said only those judges are given retirement at 58 years who are deadwood, means they are not capable enough and they are these judges are not only given the extension. So what is next? Spoil system. Spoil system. Before this, Supreme Court also said that this is not about the qualification because someone may be having the administrative experience. This is about the process and procedures. So next is spoil system. Our system is different from the US system. In our system, we appoint the officers at the higher level from the All India Civil Services. Like if we become the IAS, IPS or IRS, the government appoints us at the higher levels. So you also know that secretary and cabinet secretary, they are all IAS officers. But this doesn't happen in the USA. There's a different system in the USA. President there in the US has the full freedom to appoint its own political leaders or even someone businessman. They can appoint anyone at the higher positions. Like Trump now would join the office on 20th of January, then Trump has appointed many persons, many business persons or many political leaders at the higher post like cabinet secretary. You can take the case of Richard Verma. Richard Verma is currently working as an ambassador in our India. He is ambassador of the US in India, but he was the political leader. But this doesn't happen in our India. We can only appoint the ambassadors who are the IFS, Indian Foreign Service. So what is way forward? This is not only the story of Tamil Nadu, this happens in the many states. And the Public Service Commission was mentioned in the constitution because it was hoped that they would work as independent and free. But now, let alone the talk of the independence, they are just, you can say that working on the arbitrariness, not following any policies. So there is need to evolve a process so that integrity and caliber, these kind of things must be taken care of while appointing the members. So let's move to next article. This is regarding the cyber hacking. Now the US intelligence has declassified the report in which they have given the enough proof that the Russian authorities, or by the order of Putin, hackers of the Russia interfered in the US election. This is very significant because before this US was not admitting this, and US was saying that our election is foolproof, but now they have admitted, not even admitted, they have released the enough details, minute details. So now 2-3 questions emerges here. On the next slide we are going to discuss 2 questions. First question is how much impact if the hackers of the Russia had interfered in the US elections, so how much impact they had on the result of the US elections, whether the Trump won just because of this interference or just because of the data which was leaked due to the interference of these hackers. You know what these hackers did? They actually stole some kind of data from the Democratic Party's officials, and they sent that data to the WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks exposed that data, and which actually compromised the political status when the elections were going on. Second question is, now Trump has dismissed that no hacking did take place, so this may harden the Russia's stand, and they may also do this kind of thing in the future also. So this is a sign of danger. Then the way forward is that in the 21st century, this is big danger for the democracies. We also discussed about the fake news, and hacking is the new danger. So these kind of things are dangers for democracies, how they can impact the elections. We have seen in the US elections, and there is a lot of talk regarding that. Next is Europe. In Europe, in upcoming days, elections would take place in a lot of countries, and so they must take care of this thing that no such a kind of thing impact their elections. Let's move to next article, which is related to cold start. So what actually is cold start with respect to the military strategy? Explain with examples. Should India adopt the cold start to counter and deter the Pakistan from supporting the terror strikes against India or not? What is cold start? Cold start is actually a strategy in which we create the small divisions of troops or small divisions of army personnel. So what these small divisions of personnel do, actually they are very active, and they are being trained so that they can be mobilized in at very short notice. And when mobilized, when ordered, they can enter the Pakistani territory, and they can seize the Pakistani territory and even hold the Pakistani territory for some time. So understood? Let me explain again. Cold start is a strategy in which a small division of personnel are being trained in such a way that they can be mobilized at a very short notice, and they can retaliate. If Pakistan is supporting the terrorism, they can retaliate, and they can enter the Pakistani territory and capture the Pakistani territory and even hold the Pakistani territory. So why India should why this cold start strategy is important for India? Because, you know, it will not allow Pakistan will keep denying whether it has happened or not, because if they are accepting it, this means it would hurt the prestige of Pakistani army. That's what happened in the surgical strike, because they didn't acknowledge the surgical strikes. And even what is the use of this thing? Because they will not acknowledge it, so this means they will not be able to start a full-scale war with India, and they will also not be able to use the nuclear weapons. So that's why this strategy is very important, because whenever we intend to do something against the Pakistan, we fear that Pakistan can start the full-scale war, or even we think that Pakistan, because there are a lot of power centers there, so Pakistan can also retaliate with the low-scale nuclear weapons. So if we are adopting the cold start strategy, so Pakistan will not be able to even acknowledge that. When they will not acknowledge that, how can they start the full-scale war? That's how it is important. Now relate cold start to India's strategy with respect to the Pakistan. Why it is in news? Our Chief of Army Staff, General Vipin Rawat, in an interview mentioned about this, India is working on the policy of cold start. So now the 2 question emerges. Whether Vipin Rawat's statement had some substance or he was talking loosely. Loosely means he was just saying cold start to the things which now the army is adopting. What he meant to say? He meant to say like that, army has been the proactive, and army is able to retaliate Pakistan in its own ways. Or he meant the strategy which we discussed now. So was he just talking on the layman terms, or just when he said this thing like we are working on the cold start, he meant we are working on the concept we discussed now? So now there have been a lot of ambiguity regarding the cold start. Political leaders must clarify whether the India is following this policy or not. But it's little bit timeline of cold start. What actually happened in 2001 when the terrorists strike the terror attack against our Indian parliament? So we mobilized our army at the borders because we wanted to retaliate against the Pakistan, but it took a lot of time. That operation is called the Operation Prakaram. So at that time, this cold start concept came in our mind, and we thought that the forces must be able to mobilize at a very short notice. And political leaders never accepted this thing, but in 2010, VK Singh clearly denied that there is no such a kind of policy like cold start. But he said that the army has been following the strategy of proactiveness. And what he meant to say at that time, probably it is said that he was talking about the conversion of 9th and 12th corps near the border. These corps, 9th and 12th corps near the border, previously they were the defensive corps, and after that they were converted into offensive corps, so that when there is a need, they can retaliate against the Pakistan. So now we thought that, initially we thought that it has created the uncertainty in the Pakistan, or it is deterring the Pakistan. Now Pakistan has stopped to support the terrorism, but we were wrong, and again Pakistan started to support the terrorism, which we saw in the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks, and a lot of attacks terrorists carried out, which they were having the support of Pakistan. And again, you know, this cold start strategy backfired us. How? Because there is a doubt that whether we are having the policy of cold start or not, but Pakistan has been justifying the acquiring of nuclear weapons, low yield nuclear warheads and short range missiles. You know why? Because they are saying that India has been following the policy of cold start, so we should also acquire the weapons. Pakistan is saying this thing to the world countries to avoid the international pressure, because the international countries ask why you are acquiring this kind of weapons. So they say like we have danger from the India. Can India pull it off? This slide raises a question like, if war happens between the India and the Pakistan, whether Indian army is capable of defeating the Pakistan army, whether we are having the enough resources. On the next slide they give the answer. They say like that probably not, or because our tanks are obsolete, artillery, PC, critical shortages of ammunition, air defense, there is a lack of air force support, and also mean to say like that there is a lack of resources. A case for clarity. This the cold start concept has created a lot of problems for India. Again, that article repeats the same question, whether the General Rawat was repeating the same question, article repeats the same question, that whether General Rawat was serious what he was talking about, or just he wanted to convey that we are following the proactive strategy, or he was talking the cold start concept in layman terms. He was not serious, he was not he may be aware, but just he used the word cold start, and he didn't mean to say like cold start is what actually the meaning of it. And next is Rawat. Now the question is, who gave the authority to the Mr. Rawat to speak on this topic, or whether he crossed his jurisdiction to speak on any topic. So what the actually issue was. So this was the article, and actually the writer wants to convey that the cold start strategy is not good for India, and India should not adopt this strategy of cold start because it has backfired. Bangalore mass molestation case. What this article says? This article says that this article says that from boyhood to manhood, the man has never been governed by the principles, and morality is not there in their culture of men, and there is a misuse of the term masculinity. If someone molests the woman, then it is called the masculinity in our society, and that's how our culture teaches the men in today's society. Objectification of women is a bigger issue also, because the woman is considered as the commodity in some sections of the society, which is very dangerous for our society. That's why the cases like molestation take place. Globalization has also impacted. You also have seen like how the pornography has crossed the countries and how the woman trafficking takes place. Globalization also has created the troubles for the situation of women in some society. Although it has also improved the situation of women, but still it has the positives and negatives also. So what is solutions? Some creative solutions they are giving, like they are saying that patriarchy is embedded in our society, and it is two-faced conservatism. So we need the creative thinking. Creative thinking must be cultivated or nurtured in the gender sensitive men, so that it can be transferred or from men to son and grandfathers to parents, something like that. And gender education must be taught from the primary school itself and then to secondary school and at the college level also. Urgent need for the legal system. So two-way approach they are giving. In one way they are saying that values must be cultivated, and in second approach they are saying that legal system also must be strong, so that the culprits must get the strict punishment if they are indulging themselves in such a kind of things. Fast tracking of legal cases, all these kind of things. So let's move to next article. This is regarding the India and the Africa relations. What is context? Kenya's president now is on the India's visit. He is participating in the vibrant Gujarat Global Summit. And our Prime Minister also visited the African countries. Our Prime Minister visited the South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania and Kenya in July 2016. Now he is reciprocating the visit. And there is a significance whenever the political leaders reciprocates the visit within the 6 months. This means that something is going to happen. They have built up the instant rapport. It is an unusual gesture. Modi congratulated the Kenya's president. These are just normal lines. We can't use them in our answers. So what is utility? Utility we have already discussed. Next is Kenya's hungry for more. Now the summit level talk will take place between India and the Kenya. The trade has been increased from 4.23 billion to in 2014-15, and rapid growth has taken place. Our companies are willing to invest, then this trade level may again rise, and Kenya is Kenya is intending to have the more investment from the Indian companies. We have diverse investment there in the sector of energy, pharmaceutical, textiles, agriculture and financial services. Our companies like Tata, Reliance, SR, they are there and working there. And the article suggests that India should also approve the additional line of credit for the Kenya, and because there is high competition, Kenya is also looking, as we have the Look East policy, Kenya also has the Look East policy. So they are also building this strong relationship with the China also. And Kenya also persuaded the Japan to hold the 6th Tokyo International Conference on African Development. So we can collaborate with the Japan to build the good ties with the Africa, and we can also counter the China's increasing presence there in Africa by collaborating with the Japan. What is future of East African Community? So what is East African Community? It comprises Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan. Actually, now they are cementing their ties at very fast momentum. Now they have established a custom union. Custom union, you also know that first PTA, then FTA, Free Trade Area, Custom Union, then SEPA and SECA. Custom Union means now they will have the same custom tax and same custom duty when they are dealing with the or trading with the other countries. So intra-EAC, this means trade within the EAC East African communities has increased from 1.8 billion in 2005 to 5.63, not so important. And although it is not so much high, but still article says that the East African communities they have done fairly well. Indian government and Indian companies also need to devise a trade and industrial cooperation strategy so that they can cement good ties with these countries. And also India has to trade with Kazan. Why? Because there are also intra-rivalry within the group between the Kenya and Tanzania. Although India enjoys the friendly relations with the all, because you can take the case of President of Rwanda, he is also on the India's visit. He will also participate in the Gujarat Vibrant Summit. So what would be the status of Africa in the Trump's era when Trump would join the office? Actually, there have been a lot of talk how Trump would have his policies against the Europe and in the Asia also. But there is no talk regarding what kind of policies he would adopt in the Africa. And it's apprehension or fear that Africa may be sidelined in the Trump's approach. So it's an opportunity for India. India should take interest in the Africa's matter. And also our India-Africa policy is broadly in the line with the Agenda 2063. What is Agenda 2063? It is the agenda which has been adopted by the African Union, and they have devised some kind of policies like what kind of future they want to see of themselves in the year 2063. So that's on what they are working. That's how. Like same things, we must concentrate on the actions, not just on the talk. What is way forward? The article says the Modi government has done a lot regarding the India and Africa relations. So again, time is ripe, time is appropriate to again cement very strong ties. And the article says India Africa summit, which was about to held in 2018, now will take place in 2020. So article suggests at least in 2018 some kind of ministerial conference should take place, and which may take place in Nairobi, which is very good place. So that was the article. Next article is regarding the gender busting. So it is also a very important article. First, see the utility. Women empowerment in India needs gender budgeting. What are the requirements and status of the gender budgeting in the Indian context? This was the question which was asked in the UPSC Mains Paper 3 2016. So very important article this is. Now in the last 2-3 elections, women issues have got a lot of you can say that prominence. Now political parties also understand what importance the women issues have, because the middle society take this kind of issues very seriously. So now these are given space in the political manifesto. So this happened in the 2014 national elections and the state elections. Gender concerns, the same line which we use. So last 2 years, the policies also, this thing also have been manifested in the policies made by the government. And in 2015, a sustainable development goals came, and gender equality was also one of the goal out of the 17 goals which the sustainable development goals adopted. India also ratified the Paris Agreement, and there is a clear link between the empowering women, elevating poverty, increasing productivity, and combating climate change. There is a direct link between these issues and the women. So now a budget will be presented on 1 of Feb. So the article demands that government should allocate more funds towards the betterment of the women. Important concept here is gender responsive budgeting. So what actually it is? Before discussing this, there is a little fact. In World Economic Forum's annual report, Gender Gap Report, our India ranked at 87. In terms of gender equality in economy, education, health, and political representation. Women is suffering from a lot of issues in India: declining labor participation, underrepresentation in parliament, skewed child sex ratio, and gender-based violence. You also see like only 10% women are there in our Indian parliament, almost 11%, and sex ratio. See the case of Haryana and Punjab, what kind of skewed sex ratio there is in Haryana and Punjab. And participation in labor participation also, there is a lot of discrimination, charges of discrimination, like employer give less wages to the women as compared to men. So this is important concept of gender responsive budgeting. It came in the 2005. Gender budgeting, what actually the gender budgeting is? While making the policies or while monitoring the policies, analyzing the policies, when particular specific gender concern is also considered, like what kind of impact policy may have on specific genders, in this case is women. So this is called gender budgeting. It is of two types, part A and part B. In part A, women specific schemes. These schemes 100% allocation for the woman. Part B, pro-woman schemes, namely where at least 30% of the allocation is for women. Continued. Over the years, India has stood for its implementation of gender budgeting. This means we have done good, and in the national, also at the state levels, we have followed this gender budgeting. And now the various studies shows that there is a direct positive link between the gender response budgeting and the improved indicators for the woman. Like if we are implementing gender response budgeting very seriously, then we can elevate the position of women in our society. For example, in school ratio, female to male school enrollment ratio, and also positive impact on the infrastructure spending also. Decentralization of funding. Better implementation and planning. The article says we need the better implementation and the planning. We should ensure that the advantages of gender responsive budgeting reach to every advantage of gender budgeting reaches to every woman who is living there in the remote areas also. After that, the article says that in the budget 2016-17, some schemes got less funds, some more. This kind of data is not important. But the important thing is now the budget also initiated the decentralization. Now the state also got the opportunity to start the gender busting and get more funds which they can use for the betterment of women. Then the article says that gender busting is very important and essential tool to tackle the social inequality which has been embedded in our society. But so far it has been only used to identify the schemes which are dedicated to women. But it must use the gender lens also, like there have been the other sectors like energy, urban development, food security, which are directly linked to the woman, but little say when the government makes the policy for regarding these sectors. Women interests are not considered while making the policies for these sectors, but these sectors are directly linked with the woman's interest. So this is the point. So now the point is now for the budget, pre-budget consultations are going to be held, and so these consultations also must consider the woman's point, and government also allocate the more funds and should take the policies which alleviate the position of the woman. So planning must be targeted. Right policy with the right budget allocation must be done, and feedback must also be considered while making the schemes for the woman. And there must be the incentives mechanisms. This point says that there may be the incentive mechanism which the center can start, like they would reward the states if states are implementing the policies, better policies for the women's perspective. So that's how center can push the states to adopt the more woman oriented policies. So it is just like simple lines. So we have discussed all the articles. Tomorrow we would discuss again. Thank you very much for discussion.